Good morning. Hello. Thanks for joining us.
Bienvenue.
And welcome to all.
Je vais attendre juste quelques secondes que tout le monde arrive.
Just going to wait another few minutes
Bonjour. Ah, bonjour, mesdames.
to let everyone else in.
Bonjour Eva. Vous allez bien?
Ok, donc je vais pouvoir commencer. Donc
So
bonjour.
let's start then. Hello, everyone.
De vous joindre à cette
Thank you for joining this workshop today on adaptation in water in Africa in connection with our coalition, Adaptation in Water of Climate Change. I will just start by thanking all of our speakers and coordinators who've helped us prepare this workshop. PFE, the French Partnership for Water, ICLEI Africa, and the OECD, also here with us today to talk to us today. There is live translation available throughout this workshop. If you need to listen to English translation, you can click on the icon.
So if you need to follow this session in English or in French, you have the choice of the two languages. You just have to click on the globe at the bottom of the screen and choose the language that you need to follow the session in. Je mentionne aussi que l'idée de cet atelier, c'est que
The purpose of this workshop is to be interactive. Feel free to use the chat to post any questions, any comments, any suggestions.
Toutes les interventions qu'il y aura aujourd'hui, n'hésitez pas. Mais je profite également pour dire qu'il y aura
Also take this opportunity to say that there will be a time of interaction during the group discussion in about 30 minutes time. So you will have the opportunity to discuss during those group sessions. Adaptation in water is part of the Climate Change Summit Africa 2021 in the virtual format, of course, this year, as you know. Originally, we were hoping to meet physically in Dakar as part of our summit, but due to the pandemic, we've not been able to maintain this option. That's why we are here, virtually meeting, but very happy to be able to do so. Thank you and welcome to all. This workshop will aim at gathering all the actors and other actors, adaptation in water, of course, and other actors. And we want to use this opportunity to discuss, to share best practices, which we have noted through our call for contributions. And we will try to highlight these best practices. We also want to work on our priorities for the next events, mainly the Water World Forum. Therefore, we will now give the floor to our two main speakers. We have Mr. Abdoulaye Sen, who is General Secretary for the World Forum for Water. He will give us a few words of introduction, and you have the floor. Over to you.
Monsieur Sen, je me permets de vous interrompre. Je pense qu'il y a un petit problème d'Internet de votre côté.
Vous m'entendez?
On vous entend pas très bien. Bon, dans ce cas-là, Monsieur Sen, vous êtes toujours là? Bon, dans ce cas-là, on peut passer.
We have some connection issues, so we're going to give the floor now to our second speaker, and we'll come back to Mr. Sen afterwards. Our second speaker, oh, he seems to be back. Am I back? Yes, we can hear you, we can see you. I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank you and to dive into our topic, to say that climate change also leads us to an important modification and non-uniform of rainfalls, and the way the climate is changing in intensity, in the frequency of rainfalls, and also the length of climate events like floodings on the one hand, droughts on the other hand, and especially with in the Sahel region, an increase of drought. Also, what we are seeing is a decrease of the level of waters in the lakes, in the rivers. And I want to say that Lake Chad is one example. In a few decades, it had lost more than half of its surface area. We could say the same about underground reserves. Globally speaking, intensification and extreme flooding rainfalls, also consequences of multiple factors of climate change, are leading to an increase of climate hazards, like we have seen in many places in the world recently. Climate change has led to a deep change and transformation of water resources in many sectors, industry, such as in industrial, agricultural production, energy, and also drinking water and sanitation. Therefore, the demand for water worldwide is also determined by demographic growth and urbanization, and also depends on food and energy policies.
Ah, oui, je suis en train de m'inscrire sur le site là.
Now, according to the IPCC report, the demand for water should increase by 55% by 2050 because of the greater needs of households, agriculture, and industries. Because of so much need, decisions for water allocations become more and more difficult. Between the use and the users for water, there might be some local conflicts or extended conflicts leading to some inequalities to services with consequences at a local level. If access to households to water is key for health and for family lives and for social dignity, yet water for agriculture, industries is also key in order to provide for survival means and for generating incomes. Access to water is a human right, but in many regions in the world, this right is not yet granted to all. This inequality is quite striking and lacking proportion for many of the most vulnerable population. Water is key for production as well, whether in agriculture, in breeding, in energy, which is why it is absolutely vital that access to water, both for consumption and for production, should be secured for all. The World Forum for Water will be organized in Dhaka in March 2022 for the first time in sub-Saharan Africa, talking about security, access to water for development, and this will allow the international community to discuss the ability, its own ability to face future challenges. This World Forum would be a catalyst for future policies for water safety and sustainable development, especially in this context of COVID-19, placing water at the core of all our debates. Regarding this forum, we will tackle the issue of water safety, water sanitation, and another topic we'll be talking about water and rural development. I will stop for a few seconds to highlight the fact that the World Water Forum, for the first time, will give priority to the issue of water and rural development. Rural development is still an emergency, especially in sub-Saharan Africa, as far as the activities of this forum. Group discussions will take place, and we will, during the second session of the stakeholders on October 14th, 15th of this year, we will stabilize and validate these discussions, and we will set up what should be the sessions for the World Forum following this work. Now, regarding security and sanitation, we have stressed the idea or the fact that we need to secure access to water, how to grant water safety and quality, how to reduce diseases connected to water, how to restore ecosystems, how to put an end to the loss of water biodiversity, and how to reinforce resilience and building capacity to climate change, knowing that water remains the main marker of climate change. Important messages will be addressed to states, to local governments, so that laws could reflect in a better way this right for access to water. We will make sure that local governments would adopt relevant policies to make sure that with local governments, we will be able to develop cooperation relationships in order to collaborate with all the stakeholders to grant access to water. And I will conclude with this other topic. In Senegal in particular, more than half of the population lives in the rural area, and our economy is still basically dependent on rural activities. Therefore, we need to think during this forum at the possibility of ensuring access to water in the rural environment to prevent from this lack of water that could cause wild immigration and rural exodus, how to make sure that public facilities for water and sanitation could be developed in all of the places, in all of the school facilities and health facilities. We are already working on this. We will need to think about sustainable practices to make sure that we can reduce that discrepancy between urban and rural areas. These are key messages, and that's what we will do. And we will submit these topics to the head of states and to various political parties, ministers, parliamentaries, elected members, local members. Our ambition is to make sure that this World Forum would be a forum to find answers, an historical forum that would weigh in the realizations and implementations of our activities to reach our goal, which is access to water. This is what I wanted to share as an introduction, and I wanted to renew my warmest encouragement for this day. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Sen, for this introduction. Very brilliant introduction indeed, and I think that was very helpful to be reminded of all these emergencies. We are delighted to have been able to organize this workshop. We will be working on all of these priorities which you have listed one more time. This workshop will help us to prepare all these key messages which we want to carry to the forum in March 2022. I hope you'll be able to stay with us till the end so that we can really listen. You can listen to the results of these discussions and what the outcomes will be. Thank you once again. I will now hand the floor to Mr. Abou Bakri Sow, who is the General Director of the SAED, also in Senegal. If you are still with us, are you still with us? You can have the floor and you can share your screen for the PowerPoint in 6 minutes, if possible. Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm here. Ladies and gentlemen, hello, thank you. I'm delighted to be here with you and to take part in this workshop on adaptation and water in Africa. I'm director of SAED. These challenges really are at the heart of this forum, which will take place in Senegal in March of next year. Through this process, which I'm going to describe now, one of the key players, I also want to thank the team for organizing this summit, even though it's a virtual one. As you know, we are a national society under the Ministry of Agriculture, and our main mission is the economic development in the valley of the Senegal River of irrigated agriculture. Alongside the Senegal River, we are managing irrigation. This is the oldest society. We have lost you. Okay, you're back again. I was saying that the SAED also supports local governments for land management development in order to take on board these challenges and include them in our strategy to bring responses to future challenges regarding climate change. We are working with stakeholders alongside the valley of the river Senegal, working on adaptation to develop an adaptation strategy in collaboration with the Ministry of Development and Environment. This strategy, adaptation to climate change, and I will now present to you our action plan. It is our first slide. This field survey was conducted on the basis of an agri-ecological survey. The valley was divided up in 3 homogeneous areas: the delta, medium valley, and high valley. These are the 3 zones that we have divided up. We had a participative diagnosis of climate and non-climate vulnerabilities with a collaboration of adaptation options through focus groups and interviews. And therefore, we had a prioritization of action proposal by the various local stakeholders. We were able to co-build a strategy and an action plan through these consultations, some of them remote consultations with people from the SAED and other key actors, which led to a national plan. We have identified climatic vulnerabilities and non-climatic vulnerabilities. On this slide, we are listing the risks connected to hydroclimate, heavy rainfalls. The President said earlier on that in that valley, we've had some heavy rainfalls. We've seen an increase of the temperature all along the valley, with much more salt There's also been an opening up of the bridge near Saint-Louis, a high level of the seawater, and also higher temperatures during the cold season between December and January, and a rise of the temperature between April and May. This is causing some difficulties for the agricultural activities. Regarding non-climatic or non-climate vulnerabilities, as you can see here, non-climate vulnerabilities, we're talking here about vulnerabilities connected to women, to young people, inequalities for accessing land, finance, inputs and trainings. Other issues which we have faced, such as insects, birds, all this connected to climate change, regular cuts, power cuts due to temperatures, limited access to technologies and techniques, difficulties to access credits and finances for some categories, lack of manpower. All these factors have amplified vulnerabilities. Regarding agricultures, this study has helped us to actually elaborate SPAA, an action plan for adaptation to climate change. And we want to reinforce the resilience of the populations, especially the rural population in the valley, while promoting sustainable development along the valley. This goal has been declined in 4 axes: innovation and sustainable agricultural development, management and risk prevention, water management, diversification, and access to natural resources. Each axis has been divided into different sectors, as you can see on this slide. I don't need maybe to explain this in details. After this, we move on to the implementation and the mobilization of fundings. We've had to develop or create a cell for security and environmental hygiene in partnership with the various state structures to look for fundings for the implementation of our activities and for the reporting and the monitoring. Our partnership with DREC, the regional environmental department, and other partnerships with all the stakeholders working on the issues of climate at a national and local level as part of our Delta program of around 40 billion of French CFA. We will need some bilateral and multilateral fundings, which we'll need to go and look for, and to get some accreditation process to the green funds. We also need to look for other sources of funding, green fund, etc., LBA and others. The Agricultural Bank. As you can see, the SAED really wants to support and work alongside its various partners to a social, energetic, and economic transition. Our purpose is to implement with all of our partners some relevant practices, our transition model, in order to meet the challenges due to climate change while preserving our natural reserves. We are working also with the French Development Agency. We want to build capacities, as I've said, working with our various partners. This is what I wanted to share with you. Thank you very much. Thank you for your attention. Thank you. It was very clear.
Thank you
Indeed.
very much, Abu Bakr. It was very clear, and
if you
if
don't
you
mind,
accept,
we
we will
can
share
this with all the participants.
the rest of the participants the presentation. There were very interesting elements on financing as well. Therefore, now I am thinking of our next two speakers who are supporting projects. Mr. Medar Daudo, whom I'm going to shed the spotlight on, and Mr. Guillaume Babin, who should also be here now. As I said, these are two actors who are going to present their project. It's a pitch of the project in 3 minutes. So if you are here and ready, you are allocated with 3 minutes to do the pitch. And then we'll talk about OECD and move on to the work groups. So thank you very much. As Eva said, my name is Medar Daudo. I am from the country of Benin, and I was lucky enough to work on the GIR project, a project financed by the region of Normandy in France. And there's a consortium of 3 organizations, the CID also, and French NGO, and an association in Benin, and another NGO responsible for local development, and local corporation SA. The project was this project is implemented to respond to the issues we are confronted to in Benin, namely the floods, and the solutions provided that we needed led us to put in place this project to limit erosion in the Lomé Valley and the runoffs as well, all the sediments along the coasts. And all these actions are important along the stream. So at the origins, we were able to identify the actions needed, and it is mainly based on actions, solutions for agriculture. There's different methods. One method that wasn't used in the past, but now we presented it to the populations who have adopted it. And they saw the results. We also implemented certain solutions, soft hydraulic solutions, diguettes, they're called, small diguettes, at places where the water flow and the affluents were trying to dig deep. We try to have a buffer action. And these are measures that really helped us to say that actions were led in an efficient manner, and these some of them are still ongoing. And now we are going to continue with new knowledge to continue improve the situation. And this is our project. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Medar. I added in the chat you can see the pitch and the video as well as the presentation for this speaker. If you are interested, the link is added in the chat. Now, Mr. Babin, I don't know if you are here. Can you? Yes, please go ahead. You can pitch your project in 3 minutes. So can you hear me well? Because I know sometimes I have connection issues very well. So Guillaume Babin, director of the Universelle Association. It's special because it was created by producers of sel de Guérande. It's a special salt in the Guérande town in France. And we also, now we are working with other countries in the South, Guinea-Bissau as well. And we base our projects on the exchange of know-how and knowledge between the producers that produce this Guérande salt and other producers in Africa. So we try to make sure that people can respond to the needs and make the money that they need. So we have also mangroves along the coastal areas. These are very fragile ecosystems and very sensitive to climate change. For mangroves and cultures, I don't know if you have the chance one day, if you come to Guérande, you will see how everything is managed through the water management. And it can evaporate little by little, and then the salt starts appearing. This water management is also important in aquaculture and mangrove culture. Well, you need to manage water, rainfall water, and the salty water of the mangroves as well. For the technical level, we support them with a lot of low tech, and we provide vernacular knowledge to strengthen the productions being overwhelmed with water, and also on the opposite to counter these periods of drought. There are a lot of rice fields that have been flooded, or on the opposite, I'm thinking of Guinea-Bissau also. Sorry, the speaker is not well heard, the connection issue. Thanks to that, and adding other technologies and techniques, we can secure the production in these mangrove productions areas. We're going to also work on the mitigation of climate change. For those who already had the opportunity to see these saline productions in Western Africa, it's a production that is made thanks to brine, and you need 3 tons of wood to produce the salt. And we offer the producers to use a solar technology. So it is not about changing the steps in the production of this brine, but we just want to let sun, wind work in the right way, and so that the salt can appear. I don't know if I have used my 3 minutes yet, but this is what we do concretely. And this is in connection with the theme of water. We are very careful and vigilant to the challenges in terms of pluviometry and rainfall. And there's still quite a number of uncertainties with the IPCC. We don't know what is going to happen, really. But the rainy season, little by little, is less and less stable. We don't know if we will have more water, less water, but we know we will have more periods of drought. And the question will be to manage better these changes in terms of pluviometry and rainfall. Thank you very much, Guillaume. And as for the previous pitch, you can see all the video on our Climate Chance website. To give some time to our exchanges for the future discussions, I will now give the floor to Melissa from the OECD, and she will give you a presentation on the work done by the OECD in African cities in terms of water governance. Thank you very much. My name is Melissa Kerim Dikeni. I work on a program for governance of water and circular economy at the OECD. I'm delighted to be part of this workshop. And thank you once again for organizing it. Very briefly, since I believe a lot of these elements of context have already been quoted and cited numerous times, but what we do at the OECD is mainly work on the reports on themes and quantitative reports. And what we do is we organize different dialogues with actors, national actors, local actors, around these questions of governance on water, and namely in OECD countries, but not only, since we always work with African cities. And this, I thought that this work could be interesting for the questions we are going to tackle today. So I will share with you the link in the chat towards the recent report we wrote on water governance in African cities. This study was led in more than 36 cities, different capitals, but secondary cities as well. It's to better understand the evolutions of water governance in the cities, confronted to the megatrends that affect the water governance. So 77% of the cities are French speaking. So there were complementary studies led there. And we noticed very quickly, I'd like to move on to the next slide. Very quickly, since this was presented during the previous presentations, the megatrends that affect demographic and urban growth, we see that the cities with the most rapid growth, we see there of how they are affected by these megatrends. The deployment of new technologies that have a strong potential to forecast these hydraulic stresses and can help in water management on the daily basis. These megatrends underline the risks that threaten the hydraulic security. 38 million people were affected by floods along the last 15 years, drought, water shortages as well. And by 2050, we will reach 162 million of people living in urban areas confronted to water shortage in a permanent way. So there's also the question of used waters as well, wastewaters. And in sub-Saharan Africa, people do not have access to the main sanitizing devices and security. So in this context, we identified three main obstacles that are impeding the right governance of Africa and water in Africa: a lack of financing capacities, 42%, a lack of human capacities on the local level, and the lack of investment in the water sector, according to the survey we carried out. Based on these information, I believe that some of you have already had to work with these 12 principles, which have been written for the governments in order to put in place policies that are more inclusive. There are 12 that are here. You can look at them into details on the slide: coherence of public policies, access to data, financing, transparency, integrity, etc., follow-up assessment. So we use it to analyze, assess the frameworks of governance in the countries we work with, and therefore we came to a few conclusions to support the African cities. The first one is support local leadership. We are working closely with mayors, political decision makers, with a lot of tools as well that I will present you with right after. Strengthen local public policies, and this goes through the access to data, strengthening capacities also of our stakeholders and their involvement. That is the next point. So strengthening the involvement of stakeholders and facilitate access to financing. This is what we have noticed, but what can be done to support these local actors? These are activities that we suggested during the 9th World Water Forum that will take place. So the work group is the priority, the group working on tools and means. So that's the title of the priority. But in a concrete manner, this group is working on 4 themes, 4 main themes: governance, financing, legal tools, and regulatory tools to strengthen the integrity of water, and research and innovation. So those are the 4 pillars for this priority. During the forum, we suggest concrete actions, namely roundtable of mayors for security of water in Africa. For the moment, we have 40 mayors who will take part, but Mr. Sen will be able to give you more details about 40 mayors working together to share best practices that exist on the continent to strengthen local policies concerning water. For the question of the involvement of vulnerable people, we are working with different actors on the field in order to create a video. We are collecting messages coming from people considered as the less involved in the public policies, decision-making, and we are collecting all these testimonies to present them during the forum. And there's a manifesto on laws and regulations to strengthen water security, which is prepared by lawyers and work groups. And then for access to finance, there are different partners, financial partners that are working on thematic reports. I'm thinking namely of one on access to financing based on nature solutions. So these are a few examples. We will go into more details during the group discussions. So this was just a quick introduction. I thank you for your attention. Thank you, Melissa. It really gave us the occasion to see the link between the Water Forum and what we are going to prepare during the discussion group. So now I invite you to listen well. I'm going to tell you how we are going to do this. I'm going to try to speak slowly in order for interpreters to translate well. I'm going to create 3 discussion groups. 2 groups will be French-speaking and 1 English-speaking group. The first group will be based on water security, adaptation, sanitization. The second group the French group will be on rural development, a priority, and the third group, so the English-speaking group, it will work on the same theme as the first one. You will have 2 French-speaking groups identified in 1 English-speaking group, then you will click on the group you want to join. So you will see, I will stay here in case you haven't understood these indications, but you will see once you close this, you will be redirected to your groups by clicking on the right group. You will see, I just created the 3 groups. Here we are. So you should be able to see the 3 groups on your screen. If you click on the divide in groups. There's on the bottom of your screen, you see little icons, and there's you see the 4 squares. This is where you click on the little 4 squares and divide. It says diviser en groupe or divide into groups. I'll remind you yet. So 20 seconds now before all the groups come back. I hope you have been able to make progress, and for everyone who wanted to take the floor were able to do so, and that you were able to exchange about the main priorities. Here we are. So I believe everybody is back now. I was just saying that, yes, I hope everything went well in your small group discussion groups. And I know there's never enough time, but would the first group, the group moderated by Melissa, would like to deliver some key messages to us now? So I wasn't able to convince my group to find someone who would be the rapporteur for this session. So I was designated as such. And we had interesting discussions and some concrete proposals and suggestions. What we did first is to vote to be able to choose what were the objectives that we had on the previous roadmap, and to choose these priority objectives, and then to go further and see whether there were others. So these were relative to financing on the local level, and then research. So the one that had the greatest success in terms of vote was the strengthening of the local level. And we spent a lot of time talking about potential mechanisms to strengthen territorial collectivities as for water, sanitation, to have water security, and mitigation and adaptation as well. So there are means to strengthen this through city cooperations with the Covenant of Mayors in Sub-Saharan Africa, through the participation of citizens in the decision-making as well, which is still difficult in some cities. And we also spent time talking about access to financing, and there were several suggestions to decentralize things that are, because they are often a state prerogative, and part of the money would be useful for the projects. And then it was mentioned that there is an existing mechanism in France after the Loi Santini in 2005, and perhaps I will give the floor to Anne to mention this. It's the the Oudin-Santini law of 2015 is a mechanism that belongs to the French territories to mobilize up to 1% of their invoices in water, their water bills, and then with a decentralized cooperations in terms of sanitation. So it's a very important level that can be mobilized, but unfortunately not mobilized enough in the different local territories. But it could be also shared with African stakeholders as well. So it is a financing tool that is very interesting, that could be explored more in depth. Thank you, Anne. Thank you, Melissa. I think there's a last message to share, perhaps. Yes, 2 points on research to strengthen the messages that were passed on last year, inter-university cooperations between France and African countries, but also more generally between different universities around the world, to insist on the compilation, treatment of data collection in terms of water security, and to make this data available to more countries. Thank you. Thank you very much. Now I will share the roadmap which Melissa just mentioned, and this will let us open to more discussions. So thank you very much. Mr. Benoit, are you ready to share some things with you on rural development? Yes, to summarize what was said in 3 points. The first point is that there's a huge need for water development, raising cattle, a great need for water, but a huge potential also. There is water in Africa. We need to mobilize it and to manage it well. But the objective and the stakes are development. Development goes beyond the rural. It's true for all of Africa. If we manage these rural resources well, we can also manage food security, water security. Security is a good balance, and it is very important for the African continent. We need to have a momentum that is sustainable and have cross-functionality, work on the territorial level. There's a mosaic of situations, very different situations in Africa, and we must adapt active actions to all of these specificities. But there are ecosystems, questions of gender, inclusivity, and inclusive approach, and this is also important in these territories. What is also a key point is the question of the political ambition, the upscaling. We really need, and there's a true emergency. If we want to balance the development and have sustainability, we must do things well. We need money, we need policies, we need momentum, and an understanding also of these rural challenges. So there is a raising in terms of awareness that is obvious and necessary. Thank you very much, Mr. Benoit. I think there are many points, many themes that can strengthen the action plan, and that's already on the roadmap. Thank you, everyone, for these French-speaking groups. Now I will give the floor to the English speakers.
If you have some key messages to share with us, that would be great.
Thanks, Eva. Our group had two main discussions around the four objectives of the coalition. The one was linked to the contributing to strengthening local authorities and mobilizing territories by raising citizen awareness. And we spoke a little bit about the importance of making sure that local messages are getting to the community level so that there is more engagement in water management at the user level. So there was a lot of discussion around the lack of kind of community knowledge in certain areas in terms of water management, and the need to strengthen those partnerships and have better stakeholder engagement. And then the other point was around the research and knowledge. And we heard about some very exciting new water security based research that's going to take place based in Southern Africa, linked to with German government support. Yeah, so those are kind of, there are some interesting research opportunities that are coming up, and I think we need to take priority and support these because you know, anyway, that was like our main discussions. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Laura, and thank you for moderating the group. Donc, je pense que on est déjà
I think we have now come to the end of our session. We were supposed to have one last comment from Mr. Sen. I don't think he's still with us. I think he has another meeting also. But I can tell you that another person from Mr. Sen's group will be here during our closing session. Sorry about the noise. I think you could hear that, sorry. And I'm now going to conclude for this workshop on adaptation and water. Thank you very much for your implication and your participation. We had a very interactive workshop, I think all the discussion groups actually were able to really discuss these issues. And I think this will really help us to feed our roadmap. Big thank you to everyone who took part in these discussions, especially to our moderators, who really brought their own expertise in these discussions. In the chat, you can see the link for this coalition Adaptation and Water, which is open to everyone. If you are involved in this particular sector and you would like to share your own experiences, your own expertise, your best practices, this is what this coalition is all about. It's really about learning from one another. It's also an opportunity to think about how could this coalition become a better coalition, knowing that we do have deadlines, we have emergencies. People keep reminding us as part of the climate agenda, not only for the COP26, but other events in this sector of water, the World Forum, which we were reminded of this morning. So it's up to us to think about how to improve this virtual coalition, to keep on moving on, progressing together, continuing our discussions, and maybe identify other practical ways of working together, either on projects or finding out different strategies to implement between stakeholders of this particular coalition. So I would invite you to please contact us. You have the address of Climate Chance. If you have any particular ideas, any particular thoughts on how to move on with this coalition, we have several hundreds of non-state actors who are part of this coalition, who are all involved in the water and adaptation sector. And our strength is diversity, really. We have managed to gather various NGOs. You can see our diversity even today between women's groups, indigenous groups, businesses, local communities, and other types of associations. So let's think together how we can, by next year, continue to improve our work. And when we meet again for our next summit, next autumn in Dakar. So I hope you've all enjoyed this workshop and have worked well together. And I invite you either to the World Forum for Water or the next Climate Change Summit in 2022 or the COP26. And thank you all. And we will see you soon. Thank you. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.